excuse me. Artificial intelligence, solar and hemp, biotech, gear and liquid and film, foodable, for example, puppy, cocaine, economic exploitation for the recovery before 1947 legislation, and some finding out of no technology and possibilities and opportunities. Also something out to say about my private thing that I see in something out of the historical terminus of technique and economic, etc. by the innovator, finding something out of nickname and surname and forename, prename, like Platon or Platonic or astronomers or dimilarity. The context, the truth, not a climaxation, the realistic, the exploration about my genetic relation of Djavadi-Djaved-Tata family, so both families. As a director, Julia Schulter nearly wrecked my broke and underlarger with symmetric out of people out of banker, David Ofgen, and police wish and wants to be of, wish to be lawyer of Isse, Colleen Fernandez, Ullman, Hussein Bakiari, Samir Bakiari, Nina Berlusconi Tata, cousin of Prince of Wales, Hussein and Samir Bakiari, imitator since 93, Eduard Banker and David Ofgen, diversity of relationing, of a robbery and sabotation in indirect and direct for a forgery, robbery and farming out of some Vichy Conde economic von Fredo Caligola, Belang Djavadi-Djaved Khomeini, Roche Cayman Island encounter and amount of my name, intellectual property, the complexity like a metaphor of a bonsai tree with without not a silhouetting out of some cutting for the formation, growing the alignment of 2 decades like a mammut tree. Something economic, pleasuring was 3M, for example, out of the diversity of free insulationing potency for burning out, against burning, against cooling, and against water resistance or waterproof. The former company of my grandfather, Hussein Djavadi-Djaved, or farming out of the blocking minority of 25.1% of a lower over median or luxury market segment in an explanatory for a global market. After recognition of 5 companies, I had visualized to contractors. Compostable hemp and cartonnage and plasticide for cover and to go for solutioning, finding out some plastic out of some delphine or some whale in the full mouth full of plastic because of the rubbishing out of the between the ocean, out of some grading, out of some next to some country, out of Australia, out of some square of plastic. MIT marketing psychology details and audiovisual original effect to consist since 1989 to 2008, tending nuanced by course of RS. Psychological convincing and explanation to rarely the ethical periscope as an opportunity of artificial as a paradigm or the platex, for example, for the nuance of Italy and French that I see 2 articles that I self read about long term and I had to memorize more than 10-15 minutes read it in the that I also read on Facebook about pardoning of 3 or 2 million or 3,000 people and I didn't remember that and then I find out of something out to understand that the ethical basic out of 1984 or that finding out of something out of your privacy and your consumption behavior, man, that you're finding out only particularism, establishment, and specialism, and the finding out of individualism, advertising, and feeling not penetrated by products that you have no curiosity. Equalize to see that. As a basic. Also, and something out a contradictioning of petit bourgeoisie, new student that say is open-minded and finding out some perspective, some global satellite and some panopticon or some panel, and finding out some other perspective, not flourishing some 1 meter of the GPS of functioning out of the full globe and surrounding. The retirement pollutioning, some assets, some pollution by the finance market, the exclusive bank, a substitution of hedge fund, venture capital, and private equity, basic of Adam Smith, Karl Marx, Samuelson, Bernanke, a tax haven or harboring registration. Particulism, as I said, for example, out of the paradigm, Mövenpick now from new market segment of consumption commissioning of specialists on diversity scarcity of chocolate and other privation of magnum and yogurt, ice, and finding out some pleasuring out of some healthy and something out of some treasuring effect. So you have some win-win situation. The tendency is subsidization of short and long-term investment for benefiting pollution. American authors and genius research and studies. I had only 1.5 books have visualization, but other had finding out some recombination and find some pleasuring by him. He had a lot of the thing I have heard is Funlight. I don't know if that was some improvement. After democratic of some property, so the majority had some borderation to adolescence and personification on characters in this pain is the majority finding out some characteristic of improvement. Then also took so around about 30% yielding of estimation for this finding out of subordination, succession generation out of side effect without some over predictioning. Genius leader systematic equalize of which society become. So that's seen like expanding that I see the explanatory of the Indian society of the caste system equalize. It's the down under then finding out of some theory effect. Publishing rights, symbiotic economic explanation by new era, adaptation of dictionary and interpretation by functioning by product placement and music similarity to concite the right of payment. There's a municipality of after 40 years of musician and authors of Pulitzer Prize, Literature, Nobel Prize, and nominated for music prizes, equalized with which one finding out of the more about. Dojo, gym, new economic pollution, like electromuscular stimulation, life and work, and etc. Balancing theory, could you read that I had my perspective, what I have written. Society, behavior, man, and communication, a combination and culturation of basic education would be my finding out of 10 class. As a paradigm, the state exploitation of an economic possibility in Africa for the benefit of profitable out of snake fillet and the higher farming out of leather for shoes and baggages of the profile neurotic or consumption behavior man of finding out of their complexity, the function of their complexes for some finding out of some treasuring effect. So an actioning, not a negative finding out of characteristic in the investment in the former colonization of some connection. The hypothesis of this basic investment in former colony caused the remembrance of lower investment, higher treasury effectivity, side effect for the African pollutionary movement, for the content and agility and the mobility as economic immigration, right? Research and studies, improvement, reconformity or conformity, assimilation and implementing duplication and side effect for my impression for observation for the pollution. Then I see that every time the ships out of Africa to Europe. That was my impression. Excuse me. I had some chaos of non-chronicle of notings, and I have written that not out. It's some free speech. I hope it's the resume. A questioning of the personification facet by the functioning and impressioning of the name of Puyan Hussein Mohammed Djavadi-Djaved-Tata without the profile surrounded about Djavadi-Djaved 500 years and Tata's 350 years. My former without some graduation MIT and Harvard studying of design, economic psychology and history, strategy and tactic. About 5.5 years, so around 11 semester. My Facebook and Twitter publishing that I hold the authentic that my mentor said for my as a recommendation, like Edgar Poe text. So I see also the history of music that I said as MLG mastery, some authentic. Also the designing out of my definitioning equals to reconcile the market segment and the brand and similarity, or the other belonging of big data of the characteristic of consumption behavior as an inspiration, not an imitation. The communication psychology and the social competence is my perspective of the society problematic as an educational basic profound like behavior, economic and safety events. the context for the impression. In the 10th class, I think there would be some finding out for a convincing argument for without some prejudice and introduction, affront or confrontation, for confrontation, offending, finding out, pleasuring, equalize, generalize on a word. Only something out of some critic that I see, maybe you had some other finding out. Announcement for the behaviorment you could see as in relativity by the situationing, by incidentally observationing ladies and open not the door. Had I found seat not for the pregnancy or older demographic, fragile or non-stable human for paradigma. Only when I see I was one time 50 hours awake and was only sitting pleasuring in a full omissioning out of fluctuation of some track. And I had stayed up for an older man when I wanted to read. So then the marvelous man, zero tolerance and curiosity. The marvelous man, when somebody had get since 25 years like me, not nice US passport and some forgeries and other finding out and similarity. Equalized, born in New York City and 97, 8. So there is something out. Also the supervision defending. There is something that you doesn't have some galvanization. There's something in the electricianing of your brain, not anymore working out of drugs. That's my impression. So also zero tolerance and curiosity in human from genetic to public personation with non-contact about their sexual intercourse, cooperationing, unificationing, or orientation. Non-prudery, explanatory or explanation, a strategy of provocation of homosexuality and frightening. I had some higher value of less positive reflectioning out of this strategy that's like next to brokening my rank and similarity or homosexuality, then I'm functioning after the forgery that they born with Hussein Bakyari in 1993, functioning my art was also by the funerals of my grandfather, Muhammad Tata. Only escorts, by my mentor said. It's easier, the majority are students, when you find out something pleasuring art, you must not go out in similarity. And without to say, when I think about women who call after the last dust of the canonization of society, not a measuring, not a treasury, not anything out of behaviorment, and out of my 11 points of a principle, the prince in English, and the way of samurai, and Nicomatic ethics, then when I'm finding out something of comparison of impertinence and impotence. Impotence, he means not stamina, without to say something about the ascetic of Kama Sutra or Yokama and the virility of authentic finding out of some humoristic out what you are for personalities So, the 11 points of this book: loyalty, integrity, authenticity, acceptancy, respectancy, modesty, truthment, decency, non-arrogancy, tolerancy, polity or politeness, So that's 11 point of in principle, Nicomatic, the Hesugamer, and then some other words. And also something out of the characteristic. It's like literally a little bit so Neanderthal strategy and some repetitioning.